You are the king. Yeah, yeah, I love that. King of the class. Man, take your crown, king. What's going on, bro?
What's going on,
What's
bro?
up, man? How you doing, man?
Hey, been a good week, good week, good week.
Good week, man.
Yes, sir.
You blessed, man.
Yeah.
I can't picture personal business out there, but you blessed right now.
Hey, I'm blessed.
Yeah,
Highly favored.
highly
right now,
favored,
brother.
man. Congratulations, bro.
Thank you.
That's awesome, man. I'm happy for you.
Thank you.
Yeah, man. So it's a good thing you're doing that because with them defunding the police and all.
Yeah. Hey.
You know what I mean? You might not have a job. You know what I mean?
That's right.
I mean, because maybe that's what people are concerned about. Maybe when people hear defund the police, and they think about the fact that it's like over 18,000 police departments in our country.
Right.
90% of which are less than 25 people, by the way.
Right.
Needless to say, that's a lot of people.
That's a lot of
and
people,
a lot of communities.
A lot of communities.
And that's a lot of unemployment.
Maybe
that's what the concern is about.
Huge unemployment line, too,
And I want my job. Don't get me wrong, but like I don't think that's what the deal is. So anyway, y'all, thank y'all for joining us. We welcome you. Welcome all the listeners. Thank y'all for the support, man. Thank y'all for liking our pages.
Yes.
On Facebook, the Black Hawk Podcast. Thank y'all for following us on Instagram. Thank y'all for pushing us like, hey, we need y'all on YouTube. So we put the YouTube up. Thank y'all for just encouraging us and keeping us all the positive feedback, man. It's been phenomenal. Really. It's been encouraging. And that's the goal of this, is to help people by giving them information from the Black and blue perspective, Black community and the blue police community, which is often referred to as blue community. And just to share their perspectives and hope that we can, with a little bit of compassion in the mix, like come to some form of a better social contract per se. So that way, when we interact with each other, we don't have to, we know that we can walk away from those interactions productive and safely.
That's right.
So welcome, man.
Yeah. Appreciate this, C-Dub. Appreciate you, brother.
Yeah, so today's podcast, we're talking about defunding the police, right? If you haven't noticed from the little side conversation we were having, it's become a popular subject.
Yeah.
And as you know, we're trying to talk about all the things people care about, right? Like we're not going to waste your time or our time talking about things. Every now and then we might have a conversation about some things that we feel are important, but that might not be the most relevant at the time. Right. Yeah, that's a nice way of putting that. But yeah, so like we really want to help people with understanding some law enforcement matters, and defunding the police is a hot topic.
It's a hot topic.
You can listen to it on NPR.
Yeah. You
can listen to it on PBS NewsHour, which are some of my favorite media outlets because they at least try to give you the more intellectual perspective. Right. And I mean, like, people are just taking this name and, really just. Oh, by the way, I'm C-Dub.
And this is CBC. we
should do that. We should introduce ourselves.
Just random people
kind of
just
makes
talking.
a difference. And if you hear noise in the background, that's because we are recording in my dining room. And so I try to keep everybody occupied in their own space, but this is not a studio, and I can't limit them in their own house. So if you hear a refrigerator close, it's probably because my wife is cooking. If you hear somebody asking about YouTube, it's probably because it's one of the kids. You know what I mean? So. But I'm putting it out there. You know what I mean?
This is organic.
We are, and look, I ain't got nothing to hide. Look, I am solely here because I just want people to be having an advantage and have a better position. So let's dig into it real quick, right?
Yes, yeah, let's go.
So defunding the police.
Yeah.
This is the Black Hawk Podcast. We're looking at a couple of different areas of defunding the police, right? Let's start off with the myths.
The myths.
What have you heard from police side of things about like the myths of defunding the police?
Well, specifically from the police side of things, officers on the street are really not feeling this term, this phrase, defund the police. Now, we were making light of it as we, did our intro and all that good stuff, but this is a pretty heady and heavy topic.
Yeah.
And what a lot of police on the street are hearing is that, man, they don't want us.
Yeah.
They don't want us at all. They don't want us, period.
They're feeling rejected.
They're feeling like, oh my gosh, you already don't like us because we are enforcing these laws that, number one, we didn't create.
Yeah. Right.
And now you're talking about taking away our money for, salaries. You're taking away our money for our court time.
Yeah.
You're taking away our money for equipment.
Which we all know policing in and of itself is, people didn't sign up for police and become rich. Now, you want a decent standard of living and quality of life, of course. That's any job, anybody who's taking up a career. But we know that public sector position isn't something that's going to, just, fatten your coffers or anything like that. What we do know is that police officers really advance their quality of life through their overtime.
Right.
The base pay is the base pay, and you can I tell my guys all the time, make your budget of your life, how you choose a house, an apartment, your bills, that's off your base pay.
On your base pay.
And then go get your overtime money.
That's right.
So you can live at a way and better and higher than what you actually are living.
When the girlfriend wants a new pair of shoes, that don't come out your base pay.
Right, that ain't coming.
That's overtime. You might have to go work a couple work in the mall a couple hours.
Mall, side jobs, overtime, because Lord knows there's overtime available.
That's right.
But that's key because these officers are feeling like, hey, we signed up to protect and serve.
Right.
And these are officers that do care about people.
They care about the community.
They do. They might make mistakes, but ultimately, more likely than not, they care about the community. They care about the people. They care about the neighborhood. It's not like this ain't where I live. Right. You know what I mean? Like I don't got to worry about whether this building is abandoned or not, or I don't have to worry about if everybody's upset about me taking this person to jail, or I think it really comes down to, do these people care about my sacrifice?
Right.
Do these people really care about what I'm doing out here? And then how do I continue to serve people who don't care? Yeah. Or even not even worse, that don't care, who see me as the enemy.
Right.
You know what I mean? And that kind of goes with that whole I'm the warrior mentality versus the guardian mentality. And I need to be a warrior when it's time for me to be a warrior, but I'm being told that I need to be a guardian. But it's hard to be a guardian when you feel like the people in the community don't want you there. Right? And it's not saying that we're not saying it's like these. Well, we'll get to the black perspective in a second. But yeah. So these people are, you know what I mean? Like, the police community is feeling like, all right, how do these people? Do they want to help themselves?
Right.
Like, if you really defund us and you get rid of us, what is your solution?
Right.
What is because it's going to create a vacuum effect. Right. What is the solution?
So the myths. Getting back to what CW asked, what are some of the myths that the actual police community are spouting, if you will, is you don't want us here, therefore, maybe we should back off answering these calls quickly, or maybe we should
the proactive policing,
not be as proactive
and try to prevent crime versus responding to crime.
Right. So that phrase, defund the police, it has a very negative connotation with those people who put on that uniform every day to go out and
the phrase and that slogan is so abrasive that politicians can't even use it.
Right.
You know what I mean? Like, they may agree with adding adding alternative resources to the police department so that way they can approach issues in the community in a different manner that's outside of arresting. But they won't use that phrase.
Right. They will not use that phrase. That phrase,
It's just those people, and I know that might not be, I don't know, maybe that's what the person who started saying defund the police wanted.
Right.
But if you're looking to have people form a cohort from both sides so that way you can get some laws passed and things change, you might want to look at how that slogan is being pushed and how you can control the narrative around that slogan.
Right. Controlling the narrative so that all sides know what in the world you're talking about.
Right. Because, All right. So now we kind of dug into the police perspective. Let's dig into the black community
yeah.
perspective, right?
Yeah.
I'll start with this one since you started with the last one. The police thing isn't working.
Basically.
It ain't working. Let's get rid of it. Why do we keep something around that ain't working? Why, like, if I'm afraid, if I get pulled over, if someone who is maybe like a white male or a white female gets pulled over in a traffic stop, their first thought is, dog it, did I do it? How do I get out of this ticket? Right? Or let me just admit to it and get it over with.
Right.
Black and brown community, we're saying
Different.
How can I survive this traffic stop?
Exactly.
How can I make sure this officer feels safe?
Yep.
How can I make sure they're not concerned for their safety and they don't feel threatened? How do I not go to jail? What do I have warrants? Right? Then what's going to happen to my kids?
Right.
You know what I mean? And then the whole arresting process is, the search in public.
Yeah.
When you get taken into custody is dehumanizing of itself.
It's embarrassing, and you feel dehumanized.
You do. I mean, the reality of it is you do, but it has to be done because the officers can't take that risk.
Right.
But just these thoughts are going through your mind, like, okay, I don't want to be embarrassed. I'm in front of the community. I got my kids in the car. How they're going to respond to it, and we can trace the root of policing back to, slave patrols.
Yeah.
And we can trace it and we can follow it up in how policing was used during Jim Crow time, how policing has been used for mass incarceration, and be honest, we've made arrests, we've made summonses and issued summonses. And so you can say that we contributed to that. But I also believe that I took some people to jail that actually needed to go to jail. You know what I mean? Like, we committed a crime. And so we can talk about maybe that in another podcast. Did I contribute to this? And did I actually take people to jail that should have been going to jail? You know what I mean? So the black community is saying, man, this structure is just failing us. If we're dying from these interactions and other people are not, and we're more than 2.5 times more likely to die from these interactions than anybody else, then it's obviously not working for us.
It's not working for my community. So how, excuse me.
Go ahead.
Yeah, how do I, make this work for my community? If it's not working, hey, just like something that's not working in my house, I'm going to go ahead and I'm going to get rid of it. So that's the way that our community is feeling right now about the police force.
Yeah.
So it's not working, get rid of it.
It's not working, get rid of it. And it's like, well, and it's like, well, I know, and people are saying, well, I know defunding the police can sound offensive. And I know defunding the police can sound like a lack of compassion or a lack of respect and honor for what you're sacrificing.
Right.
But the reality of it is it's a necessary evil, and why maintain a system that is going to, constantly cause a negative impact on a community.
Right.
You know what I mean? Specifically. So I think the two perceptions, I guess we can, I don't want to belabor on it, but with the two perceptions, though, are very, very different. Mm-hmm. They're bipolar.
They are extremely
opposites of each other. And so what we have is a bipolar nation, right? Sometimes we're high and sometimes we're low.
Yeah. But
on this criminal justice matter, but they are definitely an issue for us. So now let's talk about our perception of what defunding the police is. Right. You want to start off with?
Sure.
Go ahead.
Just through reading, research, and just talking to people every day, because that's what I do. I go out and I talk to people every day. Mm-hmm. Also, I'm in the process of doing my own research.
Yeah, doctor. Working on that doctor.
Yeah, working on that doctor. But yeah, so defunding the police is not necessarily taking a boatload of money from the police force just to take it away. Mm-hmm. It's not just taking money away so that we can show police officers that we don't need you. Mm. That's not what defunding the police really is.
Yeah.
It's basically a reallocation of funding.
Yeah.
Mm-hmm. It's, and not to make light of it, but, to bring it into the household, let's say you know, in the winter months, your light bill goes sky high, but your water bill kind of sort of decreases.
Oh, the electricity bill. Anyway, sorry, I got too caught up in the example. Yeah.
So if your water bill goes down,
Right.
and summarily your light bill goes up, you're going to take some money from that water bill,
Correct,
to put it to the lights,
right? Because it's actually solving.
Because it's solving a problem. You know, not getting my lights cut off.
Right.
So it's kind of sort of the same thing with this quote unquote defunding the police. It's a reallocation of funds to make one thing, you know, better than it was before.
Yeah, and I agree. I think when we think of defunding the police, what we're really saying is, hey, instead of having $1.7 billion in the Chicago Police Department's budget, let's take some of that money, not get rid of the money. Let's not fire people. Let's not make it so they can't get raises and not like that. That's not what we're saying. We're saying let's take that money and put it towards resources that will help us actually better impact the crime in the community or the disruptions and social issues that police officers deal with in the community. Because whether, I don't know if people realize it or not, but like police officers, we get caught out to some things that we really
shouldn't be involved in. Yeah.
I mean, like you're talking about, like my 12-year-old juvenile. I'm sorry, juvenile sound like 12-year-old child is misbehaving, and I can't control them. I can't get them in the car, or they're going to jump out of the car in a traffic stop, or when I'm driving down the road. And so what we have here is now they call the police there to try to get this child to listen to their parents.
Right.
So now we went from crime enforcers to disciplinarians.
And juvenile
intake officers, or like in-home counselors,
like on the street counselors for.
It's like there is literally nothing within my power.
Right.
So I mean, we can offer them to go to talk to CPS. We can offer juvenile intake services. We can suggest programs, but those aren't crisis response programs. Those are like, hey, call during business hours and we'll get you set up kind of thing. We can suggest going to get a psych evaluation at a hospital.
So while we're on that vein, we need to talk about what the police do versus what they really aren't there to do.
Right.
Like criminal versus civil.
Right.
So police are there to, number one, enforce laws and to ensure safety of communities.
Yeah.
And we do that by enforcement.
Yeah, absolutely.
And within that enforcement, we take criminal matters and refer those criminal matters to where they're supposed to be.
Correct.
Now, when you're calling the police for civil matters.
Now, let's go over some examples of what's civil. A civil matter. So, like we said, like a child acting up. What are we gonna do, right? Or a check the welfare because my uncle's not answering the phone. Right. That turns, that can turn into anything.
Right.
Juvenile custody exchange. We're just there to keep the peace. Or
here's a recent one that I had. My roommate won't turn down the music in his room. It can turn into, if you put your hands on your roommate, it can turn into that.
Yeah, but
initially, that is not a criminal matter that the police need to be, that a police officer in uniform, in his vehicle, on patrol, needs to handle.
And I've said this in our conversations in the past, but I'll just throw this up here, like, if police officers aren't doing, our police officer's job is comprised of three things.
Right.
We arrest, collect evidence, and testify in court. If we are, I'll say it again, we arrest, whether through custodial arrest, when we're taking you in custody, or issuing a summons, collect evidence, whether it's, statements, crime scenes, whatever, and then we have to testify to it. If we're doing anything outside of those three things, we are putting ourselves at risk to be involved in things that do not that will make us liable
Exactly.
and pit citizens at risk.
In the news as of late, won't go into too many cases, but the case in Walmart out in the western, one of the western states where person was playing with a toy and got killed, unfortunately.
Yeah.
So these are things that that need to be handled by some other entity.
Correct.
Than a uniformed patrol police officer.
All right. So then the question is what is the middle ground, right, between for defunding the one? Can we even call it defunding the police?
And that's the one thing that I wish that we could do is change this media phrasing, because that's what that is. That's phrasing that's put out by. It's
like a headline
a headline.
3 short words gonna get your attention.
It's a grabber. It's a marketing ploy.
It is marketing, that's for sure. But is it helping? Is it helping?
It is not helping, in my opinion. It is not helping because, again, you've got these polar opposites. The opposites are supposed to attract, but these opposites are pushing each other away further and further. It's phrasing that
is reforming the police too light?
Reforming is a little bit too light, I think.
So like
because there's so many branches in reform.
Right. So what do you think? Transforming the police? Is that like the middle ground?
I would say
just for us, that'll be our name we'll come up with. Transforming the police.
Police transformation.
Police transformation. I like it. So, I will roll with that. So now we're talking about police transformation.
Right.
All right. So what does that look like? Okay. So one of the things people have spoken about as far as defunding the police is crisis response.
Okay.
So let's say there's a domestic assault that occurred, or a domestic violence problem in a household.
An issue involving spouses.
Yes, intimate partners.
There it is, intimate partners.
And so our defund the police crowd would say, no police, right? What about domestic violence specialists?
Right.
What about programs that help with placement for people who may be homeless, placement for people who, or not placement, but like food shelters that help people who are struggling in those safe houses. Right. What about those people respond instead of police?
Right.
And so, of course, police officers are like, go right on ahead. You walk in a house when there's a past domestic,
right,
when there's, or an act of domestic at 3:00 in the morning. And we don't know if they're still fighting, and we don't know if they've grabbed weapons yet. You go right on ahead. So I think the middle ground is like, okay, let's have this crisis response person respond with the police officer.
With the police. That's the key word there. With, not instead of.
Yes,
but with, because like you said, if it's a domestic violence issue, remember, violence, crime, they kind of sort of coexist there.
Right.
So you can't just have some layperson with a master's degree in psychology.
Well, one, I don't think they would want to go on that household.
Exactly.
Right? But two, I'm sure they would also say whatever practice, whatever service they're going to provide is not going to be effective until there's a safe environment.
A safe environment, right.
So we're talking about having a police officer go on scene and establish a safe environment. What does that mean? Identify a crime and intervene. If there's no crime, I can remove myself. You are now here. You are now in place. Matter of fact, I don't even need to stay on scene. I'm going to clear. And you got it from here. As long as you feel safe, as long as you feel comfortable, I'm going to roll out. But if I get there and she's got bruises on her face, in most states, you shall make an arrest for a domestic assault. Okay, well, I'm going to make this arrest first. I'm going to do my job first. Take him down, do what I got to do. But you can stay here with the victim. And you can settle it, and you can offer your services and your counseling and all of that. But the key there, as you said, is responding together. So I think the responding together brings in another concept of, well, which responders respond. So, like, we have Child Protective Services. They're on call
Right.
already, but we need them to respond. Right. We have Adult Protective Services. That's a resource, and they respond, and they'll respond to the call. And then we also have community service board members who are kind of like mental health experts and governed by psychologists. They respond.
Right.
But that's about it.
That's just about
That's about the gamut of it right there. And so either we're taking them to the hospital, and they get seen by a doctor. So who else do we need to respond now?
Who else needs to?
So we talked about domestic violence specialists.
Right.
Okay, they respond. Who else could we respond?
If there's a child involved, of course, we have the child
and home counselors, therapists.
Here's one that's really big right now is the elderly. We do have people who are taking care of their elderly parents, grandparents, etc.
Well, we had that in Child Protective Services because they respond in place of Delta. Okay. But we know. But is there anybody else that we need to add to the list of people who will respond to mental health services or for police response calls? Like, who else will we add to the list? Like, I guess maybe because and I think that's the question that many of us are wrestling with because, like, so we do have domestic violence specialists. Maybe they can respond. We have community outreach personnel. Right. Maybe they can respond. Right. We have school counselors or in-home counselors. Maybe they can respond. Right. And then we have to look at, well, how do they respond? Are they issued vehicles and they're on call 24/7? Are they in their cars the whole time?
Are they responding from an office?
Or a home.
Yeah. Or their home. Right.
Which creates complications if you're a crisis responder.
Right.
Because the benefit of police is that they're literally waiting for you to call them.
Right.
You know what I mean? Versus, let me get you up out your sleep
right.
so you can get showered and dressed and come out to the scene that's already been rendered and made safe at this point. You know what I mean? And you may have missed your moment. So I think how this looks has many different aspects of it. But then I think one more way we can look at it is, does this new this police transformation, is it all under the police department, or do we have these other city structures, right. Like does the human services department and which holds like child protective services, adult protective services, which holds food assistance and home assistance and homelessness matters,
right.
Which is something we didn't even bring up, but having somebody else come. But like, do we leave them under that house? But now we have two competing houses. We have two houses that have to work together versus them putting all them under one police umbrella,
right?
Or have them working together. And that may sound technical, and that may sound very in depth, and maybe almost irrelevant. But I'm telling you now, I've been in the offices. Having control of that entity in your department is it changes everything.
It changes the whole dynamic.
The mission,
yep.
The direction, when you want to use them, how you want to use them, the policies, the priority they have, the money the funding, the money appropriated to you because you have more units to govern under your office, and then so you would imagine that as a chief of police, you would want that under your helm. You would want that you would want to be able to control that because you ultimately feel like you're responsible for these matters and how they get resolved. But if you're a member of the Black community and you're already trying to get things away from the police, well, then how do you get this human services department to make police response and crime fighting a top priority when they have their own priorities?
They have their own priorities.
They have their own set of issues.
Right, their own goals,
their
own objectives.
So I think that's something that we have to wrestle with on a practical level, right? And that's something that we as a people may not get privy into of how it gets resolved, how it gets handled. But it can get real technical. But I'll save us from going too deep into the technicality because I feel like I don't want to lose y'all. We're still talking to y'all. We're talking to each other, but we also talking to y'all too. So I want y'all to be, in the conversation. Engaged. Yes. Yeah. So let's go to the next one. How does this happen? Like, it's easy to make defund the police a hashtag. It's easy to say it, but how do you actually make defunding the police happen?
Right.
And I think outside of having people, the think tanks think of what this looks like and having people make an argument for it, and then having politicians push it and legislators make law for it, and having us enforce these new laws on ourselves.
Right.
Before you do that, we need civic engagement.
Mm-hmm.
But we need civic engagement at the state and local level.
At the state and local level.
As you referred to earlier, whenever I made a marijuana arrest, whenever I did a search warrant for drug-related matters, right, I would tell people, look, if you don't, I understand you're upset, and I'm the first person that you get to talk to. I'm the one making entry. I'm the one making the arrest. I get that you're upset. You don't want that. But let me tell you, I don't make the laws.
I don't make. That's right.
If you want my job to change, cussing me out and fussing me out, that's not going to change my job. We need the community to be engaged because at the end of the day, the reason why I'm in your house, the reason why I'm stopping your car, the reason why I am have the authority that I have, whether it's the qualified immunity, whether it's the ability to use force, deadly force, all that is based upon laws.
Yeah.
And if we don't take advantage of our opportunity to control lawmakers, then we are we're subjugating ourselves to law enforcement.
Right. And to somebody else's
authority and ideas.
Feeling.
Yeah, you're right. Feeling. Just something simple as feeling.
Their thoughts on what the law should be. For instance, C-Dub was just talking about marijuana.
Yeah.
If you don't like me arresting you for possessing marijuana, which is a plant which just grows out in your yard.
Right.
You roll it up, you smoke it, like Cat Williams said, you ain't got to do nothing to it. You don't add baking soda, you don't stir it up in the pot, you don't add no heat, nothing. But anyway, I digress. If you don't like the current laws as they pertain to that plant, you have to do something about it. You have to be civically engaged.
You can change laws.
You can change those laws.
You can change the world around you. And we know it. We're so confident and we know it because we have to adjust when other people make these changes.
Exactly.
We adjust on a regular basis to what we do because somebody felt like something was so important to them that they had to get a new law passed, and now we treat it totally differently.
And C-Dub just said something really, really important there. Felt that. Based on a feeling.
Yeah, they just felt it.
They just felt it.
That's how
a lot of this stuff is not based on, scientific. Now let me back up.
Yeah. Some stuff is.
Some stuff is.
Yeah.
But a lot of this stuff that we're talking about, and we'll go back to the marijuana, that is not based on a whole lot of science.
No.
That's based on how much money can I make off of you.
Yeah. That's culture. That's a war on drugs.
Exactly.
That's controlling a society. That's politics.
And we're not going to get into. We're not going to get.
But it's way more.
But it's
right?
way more to it.
Yeah, and people have, and it's generational now.
Yes.
People have developed hatred for drugs. People develop, and unfortunately, that energy goes toward people with possession of drugs.
Exactly.
And it becomes. Now, it's versus me identifying you as someone who has committed a crime. I identify you as a criminal.
As a criminal. Yep.
There's that difference between you being a human being who committed a crime, who did a bad thing, versus me seeing you as a criminal.
Because you,
as in like that's you're not even a human being.
Right.
You live to be this. So anyway. Not going too deep into that. But my whole point is that these laws are being made. these ideas are being formulated into laws, and we have the opportunity and the power to make a difference. And so when we talk about transforming police, it starts with voting, of course, but not just voting at the federal level, not just voting for the president, but we're talking about voting for city councilmen and county councilman, a woman.
That's right. One thing that somebody very, very important in my life told me, and this person was a politician. They were a mayor at the time. All politics are local.
Yeah.
Meaning all politics start at the local level. Mm-hmm. So, yes, there is a drug schedule out there, and I'm not going to get too deep into this, but there is a drug schedule out there that the feds say that this specific
schedule
drug,
1, 2, 3, and 4.
This specific drug is bad. Therefore, there needs to be some penalty
for
possessing it.
Yeah.
But we can, at the local level, say, hey, we have done our research. We don't think that is necessarily correct. Therefore, we are going to not make it legal,
but not enforce it.
But we're going to decriminalize this so that people are not put with that stigma that C-Dub talked about of being a criminal. So all politics are local.
Yeah.
So starting at that local level, voting is extremely important.
Yeah, absolutely. And I think that like when we understand like that most of what the police departments put on us as citizens is done through the state and local level. So that's why everybody's experience, and no matter what county you're in, if you're in a different city, if you're in a different state, your policing experience could be so different because it is so individually impacted by what happens at the local level. So just to give y'all a brief breakdown of this structure, because just so y'all understand what I mean. Most states are required to have, when you formulate a city, right? When you make a city, which is brilliant. There's a county in Atlanta. I can't remember the name of it, but there is a diverse community. I believe it's an all black community. Put their wealth together to buy a bunch of land, and now they want to make it a municipality, which make it into a city. That's the American dream. That's like going back to settler times, by the way. I feel like we go on a bunch of tangents, so let me just not say, folks. But at the end of the day, what's happening is that people are, so now that you have, when you form this municipality, you got to form a charter with the state. And part of that charter, you're according to most states' constitution, and if not all, you're required to have 5 constitutional positions. You're required to have a Commonwealth attorney. You're required to have a sheriff deputy. You're required to have a commissioner of revenue, treasurer, and a clerk of courts. You have to have all those five, right? And so all those 5, when they are elected every 4 years, they have to be impeached out. These are required positions to have. They represent the state's connection to the city. So what cities said to themselves, well, you know what? I don't like these city councils, these county councils, I don't know, administrators, whatever you want to call them, superintendents. They said to themselves at one point, I don't like having a sheriff running the crime in our community because I don't feel like I have enough control, right? Because a sheriff is just as powerful as a council member. Actually,
the sheriff I think in all jurisdictions, the sheriff is the highest.
Well, outside of the attorney, the district attorney or the Commonwealth attorney.
Yeah, is the highest law enforcement agent in that jurisdiction.
Yeah, and on top of that, but they also are constitutional people.
Right.
They get voted in and out. So now with the city council decided to do, okay, let me make a change to this charter or make an amendment and say, hey, I want to now have a police department. So now that I made this police department, I'm going to make the position of chief of police. And it is his job to promote, fire, expand, control matters of law enforcement.
Under the guise of
the city council. So now the city council has direct control over the law enforcement that happens in your community. If you live in a community where your sheriff is pretty much running law enforcement, you're limited in your ability to hold them accountable. But if you live in a city and the city council has a mayor, and then after the mayor is the leader of the city council, and then you have the city manager who answers to the mayor, and then you probably have an assistant to the city manager who's like the safety director. He or she answers to the city manager, and then you have the chief of the police and the fire chief, and maybe like a public communication safeties personnel. They all answer to the. So you have the whole department under the hierarchy of the city manager, who's governed by the city council. So what am I telling you? You have that level of control, and then ultimately, if the police department's not doing well, if a shooting event happens and somebody is harmed and they feel like it's racial, they feel like the chief has lost control of the department, instead of dealing with a sheriff where you have to try to impeach him or vote him out when his term is up, you can just fire the chief.
Exactly.
I mean, of course, he's got a contract. You got to pay him out, severance pay, but you can get rid of him and get new leadership in. We're talking about a lot of control over the police department just by voting in your local elections, by voting for your councilman, knowing who they are. And the benefit of being involved in your state and local elections is that they aren't people you can only see on TV. Like, you can go find them. You know what I mean? Like, and the money you give to them, you give $20 to a national presidential campaign. It's like, oh, okay, thanks. If you give $20 to a local campaign, that's actually that's significant. That's actually, like, a decent thing. If you're showing up to the city council meetings, if you're showing up to these community updates that the city council, and let them see your faces, your power as a stakeholder is exponential.
That's right.
It must be the word of the day. And your power as a stakeholder is really really significant. And so I really think that, like, defunding the police is going to require that level of engagement.
Through you showing up to where these people make these ordinances.
Phone calls, letters. Because that's awesome. Because you know what's going to happen? When the legislature starts debating on whether to get rid of qualified immunity, you know what's going to happen? You know what the police unions are doing?
Oh, yeah.
They're calling for civic engagement from those police officers. Contact your local senator, let them know that this puts you at risk, and they're getting them involved. So we as a community, as a Black community, and as a Blue community, have to make our voices heard. And I say that to say this: there are a lot of people in the Blue community and the police community who want to see change. Right. At this point, many have realized that things have got to change.
That's why we're here.
Yeah, exactly. They want to see change. We've been here, but we're here on a podcast now. That's different, because we ain't new to this. This is not a new conversation for us. I think more people have joined us in this conversation. But I think now it's like, okay, let's have this conversation on a podcast, and maybe it'll help the people and take it to another level. So yeah, man. So I think that's what we want to cover so far. If we go any further, we're probably going to way beyond our subject matter. I feel like we kind of went on tangents, but it's all right, because we kind of stuck to it. So I just want to just kind of recap. Hey, look, y'all, the myths about it, don't let it control the narrative. I think we have identified our perception of it, and we feel like that's what is more of an accurate perception of what people want from defunding the police. And that's just simply involving people that are going to have a better opportunity and a more expert service at resolving problems that police officers are now responding to.
That the police usually respond to.
Absolutely. I think we're also talking about what the middle ground is, who are our crisis people respond, how they respond, like, how does this thing get built up? Because, like, it's a real conversation to have. And so when you take this information, like, ask media about it. Ask your police chief when they have these community walks or these outreach events, or go to City Hall. Like, ask how the structure is going to be. Because what's the most important thing is we have a moral and educated electorate, a voter base, a citizenry that is going to be asking those questions, presenting this information. What does it look like? Is it going to be under the police department? Is it going to be another agency? Then how do we make them work together if it's not? And then how do we govern the police if it's going to be under the same agency?
And what is the accountability?
Oh, man.
If something happens to go wrong with that specific agency handling this specific
If they're
problem.
failing to execute,
It's right.
if all of a sudden this, again, a domestic violence specialist says, hey, this police officer is not giving me the opportunity
Right.
to dive in on this matter. They're just jumping on the case, and then they're not leaving, and people don't want to talk to me because they're just standing right there. How does that accountability happen? Does the chief side with the police side of things? Or does the chief side with the domestic house of things? And believe me, that's a conversation. That's an issue. And so we're talking about and getting all these. We're talking about knowing what it is, identifying what knowing what defunding the police is, identifying what defunding the police is. We're calling it police transformation, because it just sounds like a more better.
It
just
sounds better.
You know what I mean? Like, hate us to love it for it, but like, ultimately, I'm not trying to like make someone accept my viewpoint. I'm just trying to find a middle ground where everybody else can easily get onto that. But also, like, not only we're talking about what it looks like and how it's built, but how it becomes into being. And that's going to take a level of civic engagement. And hopefully you walk away with a better understanding of like maybe my power as a local councilman or councilwoman person, I can really make a large influence. Just give it a shot. If you have a complaint on an officer, if you have a concern about police, talk to your city council members. Hopefully you have a relationship with them.
Trust me, they will be glad to sit and talk with you.
Absolutely, let them know. And if they aren't, they'll let you know they shouldn't be in office. Right. But it'll be a wake up call one way or the other. And if they are willing to talk to you, just watch how you get the quality response.
That's right.
Versus just calling in on non-emergency number and saying, hey, I need a patrol check in this area. It's treated in two totally different ways. But I want our citizens, I want our communities to understand the impact. And I know, like, some people are saying, I know people in the blue community are probably like, man, don't have these people calling us for frivolous stuff. You know what I mean? But I think people are going to do that regardless. But I think the black community hasn't been doing it. They haven't been on board with that. I need to know that that's a lot of power.
Right.
That's a lot of weight.
That's a lot of weight.
You're directing resources and attention to a particular area coming from the chief of police, who pretty much is the king of the police department. Right. You know what I mean? He does whatever he wants, with the rank below his rank. So, look, guys and gals, we appreciate y'all listening in. Thank y'all for your time. Thank y'all for your support. Again, the support has been awesome. And if you have not, like us like our page on Facebook, the Black Cop Podcast. Subscribe to us on YouTube at the Black Cop Podcast. Follow us on Instagram at the Black Cop Podcast, and we're on Twitter. But Twitter, I don't know. Like, Twitter is, I don't know. It ain't Twitter. We'll see. I'm working on the Twitter.
Yeah, we're
working on Twitter, but I feel like the Instagram and Facebook and YouTube has been way more beneficial. If you want to, like I said, if you want to contribute, you feel it in your heart, like, hey, I want to help these guys out or something like that, I want to support them financially, you can do so by going on the website, and that's attached to this podcast, and there's a donation button there, and you don't have to, but if you want to, go for it. It's just a thing to tell us to give our listeners an opportunity to do. It helps us pay the bills. That's it. This equipment ain't cheap, though. So if you want to, but please, by all means, help us out. What else?
The website, or the email.
The email.
I know people are going to have questions.
Yeah, if you have any questions,
ask those questions.
Yeah, if you have any questions, or any topics that you want us to bring up, you can email us at the Black Cop Podcast at gmail.com, the Black Cop Podcast at gmail.com. We'll be more than happy to try to respond to it the best we can. We're even open to criticism, constructive criticism, because we want to improve the product. That's right. Constantly get new equipment. We got Craig a new microphone this week, so hopefully it sounds a little more, clear.
Froggy.
Yeah, and we're gonna get some more equipment. So maybe by the next podcast, it'll be, ideal where I wanted to see. So. But yeah, we're just gonna get better. We're gonna keep making noise. Hopefully, and spread it, share it with your friends and family. Yeah, if you gonna call me and ask, hey, just go ahead and share it. Get it to your people. Make sure that we are able to better assist you. So anyway, I'll see you, Doug.
See.